Getting it going. Good evening, everybody. We are so glad to have this special edition of Turnaround Marriage, our live event, and we're so excited that we're going to have many of you dropping in this evening. And whether you're dropping in live or even later on, I promise you this is going to be well worth your time.
Yes, if you are struggling tonight in your marriage, if maybe you are in a blended marriage that's challenging, if maybe you've been stuck in ruts of poor communication, fighting, if you are dealing with coping mechanisms that are not healthy, maybe some addiction or some darkness, we have a hopeful story for you tonight because we have rock stars Jamie and Michelle Higginbottom joining us tonight. Woohoo!
There's a lot of other people cheering too.
We are so excited. Hey, Becky's joining us. Hey, Becky.
Good
and we are just so excited for you guys to get to share your story tonight. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in. We hope that you are going to pay close attention because they have a cool story to share.
Yes, this is Jamie and Michelle. They are an amazing couple, as Rachel's already said. And we want to just give a full disclosure. Jamie is my cousin. And I give that disclosure because that's part of the story. You know, I think part of the story is Jamie, you know, we've known each other for a long time. We love each other. And Michelle, I've known you for a number of years too. We love you, but we didn't know that there was behind the scenes some issues going on. So it was just so humbled to think that you would come and talk to us about getting help with Turnaround Marriage. And that was such a blessing. So guys, as we dive in tonight, first of all, welcome. You guys doing okay this evening?
Yeah, we're doing good.
Awesome. You guys are so generous to share your story and to give some of your time tonight. There's people out there, like Rachel said, that are struggling. They're in different places. Maybe they're even feeling hopeless. Maybe they're feeling like their marriage can't be fixed, like it's too far gone. Maybe that there's not help that could fix where they've gotten. So let me begin by asking, where were you guys before we started working together? Where was your marriage?
It was not good. We had definitely gotten into ruts. Communication had gone downhill extremely, and there's just a lot of hurt between the two of us. Some baggage either that we brought in or the way we treated each other. So it got pretty rough there and pretty dark.
How was that negatively impacting your general life, your day-to-day life?
Yeah, it affects everything. At least for me, I was brought up in a Christian family. I'm a preacher's kid, and so I was raised in the Christian beliefs, and I hold to that. You know, I can't say that I always lived it out, but you know, I did hold to those values.
Right.
And when you allow yourself to go in those places, especially in a relationship that is that big a part of your life, you know, as much as a marriage, it's going to affect everything, you know, every aspect of your life, really.
How about for you, Michelle?
Yeah, I think it definitely made everything a little bit more difficult. The relationships with the kids were a little bit harder. Having, you know, a blended family like we do with my biological children and his biological children. And so the tension between us can cause a lot of relational issues across the board. So definitely the recipe for despair and darkness, like you said. So.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, what was that dark night of the soul where you guys were like, all right, we can't go on like this. We got to get some help. Do you guys remember? Was there one particular night?
We kind of discussed that before. I know for me, when I think back, the darkest place that I can think of is when I did honestly consider divorce as an option. I think that's probably where it was the darkest, you know, like maybe we should just get divorced. Maybe it'd just be better for everybody if we just end it now. I think that for me was the darkest moment, I guess I would say.
For you, Michelle, did that cross your mind?
Yeah, it's similar for me. I think for I get into the flight mode, and I'm like, where could I go? How can I just disappear? So I think for me, it was a lot of that too. I didn't exactly contemplate in detail, but just like, how can I just not be here?
Mm.
So, and I think a lot of it also culminated with my own personal issues, and it definitely exacerbated that significantly to where it was like not really suicidal thoughts, but just not wanting to be alive, really.
Yeah.
Mm.
Is it fair to say for you guys that there was really an intermingling between there's this dysfunction in the marriage on one hand, and you guys knew that you're not communicating the way you wanted to, and you were hurting each other, but yet you also see on the other hand some of the coping things that you turn to. Did some of that kind of get mixed together in your minds and your hearts about how bad things had gotten? Does that make sense what I'm asking there?
Yeah, I think the coping that I chose to use to deal with everything kind of dumbed things down a little bit to where it was like easy to ignore to a certain extent, like how bad things were with us to as a unit, as a family unit, and as a married couple. But I think that's what you were asking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the coping can help numb things and give you some breathing room temporarily, but what eventually happens, right?
Yeah,
Eventually,
it always makes it worse. So like, in the light of morning, things are always way worse than in the dead of night. You know what I mean? Like,
And I think for me, the thing that I realized too was that those coping mechanisms were self-centered. It was self-preservation. Me. How do I make me feel better about this? How do I make this situation better for me? And that's huge. That's if you don't realize that, then you're going to have a hard time figuring things out if you can't get to that realization first that it becomes a self-centered issue.
Mm-hmm. And you guys have begun answering this question already, but why was it important for you guys to fix this? Why was it important for you guys to get on the same page to fix this marriage and really to level up personally in a way that this marriage would be impacted?
Just the amount of things at stake, like the scope of the repercussions of where we had gotten. I mean, the kids and our own personal lives, and just everything was at the brink of destruction.
I mean, there's so many reasons. It's the first thing that comes to mind is, as a believer in Christ, I want to follow him. I want to do what he says, and and in the Bible, it tells us very plainly how we should live throughout a marriage. Who we should be in a marriage relationship, and so there's that, and then there's our children, each other. Like, even in those times when you feel like you want to strangle your partner, that you still have there's still love there. It's just a matter of what are you focusing on at that point.
So what did you guys try before you reached out to Scott?
Oh, several things. We went to several different counselors, church counselors, secular therapists. Yeah. Went to marriage seminars. I mean, we tried a lot of stuff. I don't know. I don't know if it just our hearts weren't in the right place at the time, but I never seemed to get it fully back into a good, steady, rhythm.
I like to think that everything that we did do led us to where we are. I mean, there's a reason why those things didn't work, because we needed to take a good hard look at our own souls. And
Mhm.
I don't think until we went through this program did either of us do that.
Yeah, I was more focused on the marriage, which this is, yes, this has been very, very much for marriage,
But it
but
starts
there's
with
there's
our
a lot.
heart.
Yeah, there's a lot where it's personal. You have to look at some of your own personal inner workings, issues, and things like that. I feel like too.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. Sorry, hon. That's one of the things we love about Jamie and Michelle
Yeah.
is because you guys totally showed up, ready to own your crap, ready to own it. Basically, the excuses were put aside, and you both looked in the mirror and was like, "It starts with me."
That
It
was,
wasn't
that was
easy.
not easy at all. I'll say that first of all. I didn't come into this saying like, oh yeah, I'm ready to own up to all my crap.
We were down in the dirt, like in the grit, like, all right, we have to be grateful. At least I was. It was like, I had to really drag myself through it sometimes just to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's so important that, and I think that's where a lot of people get stuck is they'll say, I need work on the marriage, but I'm fine. And the reality is it's two becoming one, and right. And so you have to work on yourself as you work on the two of you at the same time. And that's where you get the best turnaround. So, but guys, I want to honor you. Like Rachel's already begun to allude to that. You guys showed up committed, coachable, and resourceful. You knew that the way that, you had been doing it wasn't working, but let me ask the question. Obviously we knew each other, but were you skeptical in any way about whether this would work for you?
Yeah.
I don't know. We never discussed that particular aspect, especially with the relation between you and me. But yeah, definitely. It's like, I don't know. I mean, this is my cousin and his wife, and how's this going to play out? But yeah, I think very quickly though that it was very easy to put that to the side, and this was something different than our cousin family relationship. It was a different thing altogether.
Yeah. And that's one thing I loved about you guys is that you were like, it doesn't matter. God has put us together for this moment. Right. And it was his divine appointment. And it was like, you guys realized that you needed to fix some things and you were ready to dive in from the very get-go. And that really is the secret sauce. I mean, that really is why you guys have got, even in a short amount of time, an amazing turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember any of those?
We'll say something to that, just for anybody who is watching. Like, I remember our first phone conversation, and that was your question to us, like, are you guys committed to doing this? Are you committed? I'm like, I don't know. Am I really committed? I think I was like, yeah, of course I'm committed, but there was still like, well, am I really going to be fully committed? And I think for anybody who is interested in this, but they're not totally sure, like, it's okay to have those doubts of thinking, well, am I really committed to this? But I feel like even entertaining the idea of doing this shows there's commitment to it. So don't get discouraged by that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you guys really did dive in. I'm wondering, is there anything in the beginning as you dove in that maybe something I told you or something that you had seen in part of the program, and it was, something that stood out like, whoa, I've never thought of that or done that before. Was there anything that stands out to you early on?
I don't know. I think it was in one of our conversations with you, probably a couple weeks ago. I think the reality for us was like, all of this stuff is stuff we've heard before. It wasn't like anything new per se. I think for us, it was more perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was, for me, it was like, when you pray for understanding, you will receive it. When you pray for wisdom, you'll receive it. You'll have that clarity, because like you said, I mean, I'm a pastor's child as well and was raised in the ministry my whole life and had heard these scriptures and these principles repeatedly. But it's just a good reminder that the word is living and breathing, and it's relevant for each day. So I
Mhm.
think that can be encouraging to some as well. Like, oh, well, we've heard it all. So had we, but
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah. Well, like we said, we've gone through several other things, and not to say that they weren't teaching the right things. I mean, a lot of the stuff is very similar that passes over in each thing that we did to try to fix the marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anything that stood out that was like, well, that's out of my comfort zone?
I think for me was really the selflessness. Like, yeah, it's hard to say, well, I just think about myself a lot, but, there's points where, well, do I want my marriage to work? And if I do, I've got to be brutally honest with myself about how I've handled things, and
Yeah.
not just how I feel she's handled things, but how I've handled it. And yeah, so for me, it was really a matter of like
transparency.
yeah, transparency, but yeah, getting out of this self-centered mindset. Um, the Bible, God tells us that we're to be husbands, treat your wives as God treats His church. Where He laid His life down. So that's pretty selfless, and there for a long time, I would kid myself that I was kind of doing that, but the reality of it was I really wasn't, and things I would say or do were totally self-centered and not, putting her above my own self.
Yeah.
And when you started owning that, Jamie, what happened right away as you started putting Michelle before yourself?
There's, it gets better. There's less tension, less fights. It wasn't easy, after, you go your whole life living more of a self-centered life, and then trying to break out of that. It can be a little difficult at first, but it isn't as hard as you think it would be once you realize the results you're going to get from it.
Yeah. So it was kind of like we had to pull up some weeds that had gotten in the way, right? And once you did, were you guys did you believe that you could have a relatively short turnaround in terms of really weeks and months instead of months and years? Did that surprise you guys at all?
Yeah, I think at first it was like, that's not possible. I've tried everything, that mindset. But once, applying, like, speaking respect to him in a way that I'd never spoken to him before. Like, I'd tried to respect him how I thought you respect people. I had a hard time like grasping that, but just simple words of encouragement and how quickly his countenance would turn. Like, when those things happen, and when I received that selfless love from him and felt how quickly it turned my hard feelings away, then that's when I was like, okay, this looks like it's definitely possible. So.
So
Awesome.
So catch us up and tell us where you guys are now. How's your communication? How's your closeness, etc.? Tell us.
Well, it's definitely all better than when we started, for sure. Arguments could go a couple days, if not a week, prior to this, but we have definitely been able to catch them early on now, and put in different coping mechanisms on how to deal with those situations, to where they wouldn't become like the next World War III, or the big blow up issue.
Yeah.
I mean, we still fight, and I think that's what, like, the world can tell you, like, that perfection is attainable, but it's not. So I mean, we're going to disagree, and we're going to argue, but I think the point is doing that gracefully without further injuring each other and damaging each other, you know?
Mm.
Yeah, like this is going to be a lifelong journey, and like she said, nobody is perfect, and both of us are going to have our mistakes over time.
Yeah.
But
Is it fair to say that you guys have been able to get to this place in the middle of a pandemic, among other stressors in your marriage? Is that fair to say?
It's been an interesting time. Like, I swear, when things just happen all the time with us, and they always have, like, I mean, catastrophic. Like, and I'm not even exaggerating. We just look at each other like, all right, here it goes again. So, I mean, COVID was like nothing, you know?
Hey,
That,
nothing. Yeah.
it was nothing. So, but yeah.
But definitely, yeah, with the work that we put into the marriage, it has made those other issues so much more manageable.
Yeah.
And so much easier to pass through when we can be on the same page and be doing life together in a positive way.
Yeah, there's articles coming out now, guys, that there's talking about how divorces are spiking right now because of the stress, because of what people are going through. So again, I just want to commend you, because not only have you committed to each other, but you've also learned ways to navigate these conflicts and have them draw you closer together instead of apart.
Yeah, because that's the thing. The couples we talk to that don't fight and don't have conflict, it's because the tension is so thick, they just avoid subjects, and
Right.
they have no intimacy. They have no, but it's like when you can learn how to use conflict to draw you closer, to be able to understand each other better, move past it quickly. It's huge. And you guys were just so coachable, so fun to work with. And of course, we love you anyway, but it's been just such a joy to be on the journey with you and cheer you on and pray for you and watch you guys just blossom into your awesome selves that you are.
Yeah.
Those people down deep that we knew were there, they just had to come out, So
Right.
Michelle, you're smiling from ear to ear, and you're just so beautiful. I love you so much.
Yeah. And as we're wrapping up, just have a couple last questions, but if anybody's in the chat has a question that you want to ask, that'd be awesome. Just to show how this is live and we're legit, we're real, And so guys, I guess I'd ask you, what big takeaways would you want for the audience to understand tonight?
Yeah, there's no like magic formula. If you're here considering fixing or needing some solution, you come to the table to fix your marriage, to fix yourself, but ultimately to fix your mind on Christ. That's what's going to resolve all of your issues, and not like erase them, but just you have the peace that surpasses all understanding, and you have the joy of the Lord, and you have all of that to get through life on this earth with your partner.
That's good. So,
Jamie, did you have something to add?
Yeah.
What was that?
Did you have anything to add? Sorry, it looked like you were about to say something.
Oh, yeah, I think, like I said before, for me, the big thing was, coming into it, realizing how selfish I was. And I think the takeaway is like how selfless marriage is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be all about you.
And what did you guys find when you started serving each other that way? What happened as a result?
Yeah, it changes things quick.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you have so much more, like, I don't know, it's hard to put into words, honestly. Like, I mean, you spend so much time trying to fill your own cup up, but when you pour into someone else's, yours overflows before you can even.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. 100%.
Awesome. Love that.
That's
You know,
such a
There's times that, when you're skeptical about it or whatever, and you're like, well, what's the point if I do something nice for them, and they just blow me off. Like, okay, yeah, that might happen, but guess what? Even when you do that, there's still going to be a part of you that still gets filled up. The Lord doesn't let that go.
Well, and God will bless that.
Yeah,
too.
without blessing you back, even if it's not the way you think it's going to be. So you can't put so much onto your spouse either in those situations.
Right.
Expect anything in return. Ultimately, I think, and that goes back to at least for husbands. I said earlier about we're supposed to be as God is to the church, where He gave up everything, and He didn't say, "Well, I'm only going to give this up because I know that they'll come back to me," but that wasn't what He said either. It's like He gave it up, even knowing that there's still people that will not accept Him or will not believe in Him. And I think that as a husband, that's part of our calling too towards our wives. But God's not going to let that return void for you either.
And guys, you were able to get out of that the ruts of giving to each other what I call poison, like hurting each other, hurting the relationship. But when you started to show up selflessly, and you were giving to them nourishment to their souls, Jamie, you to Michelle, and Michelle, yes, you're receiving that, you're doing that to him, but you're also, as you're giving, you start receiving what you need as well. And didn't we see that happen pretty quickly?
Yeah. It can happen real fast, actually.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's not possible, by the way.
Or so they say.
Or so they say. Right.
I think we were blessed in the fact that we were both willing and able to give our all to it. I know that it is possible to fight for your marriage alone, but I'm very grateful that we had each other to fight for it together.
What a good point, Michelle. It's amazing how God's manual of operation for this thing called life and marriage, it actually works, and the principles are there. And sometimes you just need that hand of somebody taking your hand and saying, I got you. We can do this, and believing in you before you believe in yourself. And that's the privilege we get to have. And just to see a couple like you that we love from the bottom of our heart to be now laughing and enjoying. And just tell us real quickly as we close, where was your emotional home before? Where did you kind of live emotionally every day? And now, where are you at most of the day? Would you like to share?
I was withdrawn. That's how I coped with issues. If things weren't going right, or I didn't feel like it was going in a good direction, I would just withdraw. And it wasn't just between me and her. It ended up withdrawing from almost everything, really, except for the major things like, yep, I got to get up, I got to go to work, got to come home, got to help make sure the kids get homework done, just like those things. But
the emotions.
Every other aspect of life was pretty much withdrawn. So that's.
And how about now, Jamie?
Oh, it's much better. I feel more drive to get out, to step out more, to make connections, and to be a part of the family when I am home, and to have more, to be involved. And,
more present.
Yeah.
Love that. How about for you, Michelle?
Probably like restless and resentful. There was a lot of self-hate. That's kind of where I lived. I could still tend to go there, but as a majority of the time, it's more gratitude. I think I tend to veer more toward what I'm thankful for about myself and about him, rather than what I don't like.
That's awesome.
I love that. And it shows on your face.
Yeah.
You guys are so awesome.
And when you get that right at home, and you guys are showing up that way, it has every impact in every other aspect of life. And you can see that just in your countenance, even on the call tonight, and even from where we started towards the end, you guys absolutely changed. And it's so beautiful just to see the progress that you've made. And it looks like some burdens have been lifted from you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure.
We just were sharing them now.
I love it.
Love it.
The verse
Ultimately,
you chose, beauty from ashes. You want to read that? Isaiah 61:3. I love this verse because this is sort of some of your story.
Yeah, to grant to those who mourn in Zion, to give them a beautiful headdress instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the garment of praise instead of a faint spirit, that they may be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified.
I just love how that's what you chose, beauty from ashes. So you guys, thank you for sharing your precious time and your precious story. And one last question is, if someone is watching and they're wondering if they should book the call with Scott and start the conversation, what would you say to them?
I mean, there's nothing really to lose. Like, there's no price tag on the redeeming grace of God and his ability to completely turn it around. And yeah.
Yeah, it's totally doable. Like, yeah, I don't, I can't,
Regardless
I can't
of-
even put
yeah.
in words.
Yeah.
Like, no matter where you're at, I think it's totally doable to fix your marriage. And
Well, if they show up like you guys did, coachable, committed, resourceful, all in to get it
Yeah.
fixed now.
Mhm.
And if I'd love to get on the call with people, but I'm just amazed at how you guys did that. So that is the secret sauce is who you are and how you showed up. And if there are people out there tonight, I do want to say to you, book that free call. What we do is dig into what's not working in your marriage right now. Talk about what it might look like, what you dream that your marriage would look like, whether you've been married 5, 10, 20 years, whatever it would be. And then we talk about a path to get there. And if I can help you, I'm going to make that path really clear, just like you've heard from Jamie and Michelle tonight. And if there's something better, I'm going to point you in that direction. But that call is absolutely free. I serve you and give you clarity about where you guys are at. I wonder, Jamie and Michelle, is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish up tonight?
any parting words?
Thank you guys for
Thank you
sharing your
so
story,
much.
your time, and your hearts with us. We love you so very much.
We love you and are so proud of you too.
Yes. Thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you next time and have a
Yes.
great night.
Good night.